Welcome to another edition of The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a psychological dynamic that honestly affects almost every single relationship we have. We're talking partners, family members, friends, even that one colleague at work. We are going to decode those invisible walls that just quietly get built up in our daily lives. So, let's jump right in.
Okay, I want you to picture this scenario. You ask a close friend or your partner for a favor. They smile, agree without a single argument, and say, yeah, of course. But then, something weird happens. The task just gets endlessly delayed. Or it's done so poorly you kind of wish you hadn't even asked in the first place. Or maybe their tone just suddenly shifts and you get that tense, resentful, I'm fine when you ask if everything's okay. It leaves you incredibly confused, right? You feel like you made a mistake, but you have literally no idea what it was.
Now, the crucial point here is going to completely flip the script on how we view this. We usually look at passive-aggressive people as manipulators, right? Like they're the villains operating in the shadows. We actually need to drop that villain label completely. Psychology tells us that this behavior actually stems from people who often care a lot, but they simply do not know how to express it safely. It's not cruelty, it's actually a really tragic coping mechanism for unexpressed pain. And when we understand that it's a survival mechanism, well, it immediately reframes how we look at the person doing it and kind of replaces our sheer frustration with a little bit of empathy.
So, let's break this down into the 5 hidden forms of passive aggression.
Interestingly, passive aggression isn't just about giving someone the cold shoulder. It actually comes in 5 specific, often totally invisible forms. The first 2 are probably the most common. Form 1 is the classic silent treatment. This acts as a silent punishment. Their physical presence is there in the room, but their emotional presence drops to absolute zero. It leaves you, the receiver, utterly confused about what you did wrong. Form 2 is sarcasm, or the good old backhanded compliment. This is essentially a hidden dart disguised as a joke. When you confront them, they'll just say, "Whoa, I was only joking, don't be so sensitive," which totally traps you in this cycle of feeling hurt and then feeling like you're overreacting.
Forms 3 and 4 are super tricky because they're often mistaken for just pure laziness. Form 3 is strategic incompetence. You ask someone to do a chore and they do it, but so incredibly terribly that you end up finishing it yourself and swear you'll never ask them again. It looks like laziness, but it's actually a subconscious way of maintaining control. Form 4 is procrastination. Deliberately delaying things is another sneaky, indirect power play. It's basically a silent way of them saying, you can't force me to operate on your timeline.
The final, and honestly arguably most emotionally complex form, is victimhood. This is where the person frames themselves as the eternal victim. You know the script. I do so much and no one appreciates me. Or, well, I guess I'm just always wrong then. It's an indirect way of guilt-tripping you. It forces you to apologize and make more of an effort, which gives them the control they felt they couldn't just ask for directly.
All right, let's look at the childhood roots and where this all comes from. Nobody is born passive-aggressive. This timeline traces a really tragic journey. It almost always starts in a childhood home where direct expression simply wasn't safe. If a kid is constantly told, "Don't get angry" or "Stay quiet," their brain has to develop an alternative, indirect route to let frustration out. By the teenage years, this creates a complete lack of emotional vocabulary. They literally never learn the words to say, "Hey, I feel hurt when you do that." Ultimately, by adulthood, any conflict is viewed as a total catastrophe that's going to end their relationships. So when they face a power imbalance or a disagreement, they just default to that infamous phrase, "I'm fine," while their behavior is screaming the exact opposite. Now, let's hold up a mirror. Are you the doer? We're going to do something a little uncomfortable here and run through this honest checklist together. Do you ever say, "I'm fine," while secretly wanting the other person to just read your mind? Do you say yes to tasks you have zero intention of doing on time? Do you ever pass off genuine criticism as just a joke? Do you selectively forget things you didn't want to do in the first place? Now, remind yourself right now, if you checked any of these boxes, there is absolutely no judgment here. Acknowledging the pattern is simply the vital first step to building that self-awareness.
Shifting gears, let's look through the window at the invisible cost of this behavior.
This stark contrast shows exactly what is at stake for both people. The doer genuinely thinks they are protecting themselves, but the cost is immense. They remain deeply isolated, trapped behind this emotional wall, and they never experience genuine intimacy because true vulnerability is completely missing. Their long-term relationships inevitably turn toxic. Now, on the flip side, the receiver suffers what feels like a rapid, agonizing decline of the relationship. They live in this chronic state of confusion, constantly walking on eggshells, wondering what reaction they're going to get today. This hypervigilance breeds severe self-doubt and anxiety. It literally makes them feel like they are being gaslit by their own reality.
Thankfully, there is a way out. Let's walk through the 5-step framework to change.
If you recognized yourself as the doer in our earlier checklist, here is your path forward. Step 1. Recognize the moment you say yes, but actually mean no. Just pause and observe it. Step 2. Dig underneath that fake anger and find the actual feeling. Are you hurt? Are you feeling neglected? Or maybe scared of rejection? Step 3. Shift to using I statements. Instead of saying, "You always do this," try saying, "I feel hurt when this happens." Step 4. You absolutely must stop viewing conflict as a catastrophe. Direct disagreement actually strengthens real bonds. And finally, Step 5. Practice gradually. Start with incredibly small, safe situations to teach your brain that expressing yourself directly isn't the end of the world.
Now, if you're on the receiving end, your power lies in pulling this behavior completely out of the shadows. Step 1, name the behavior observationally without any accusation. Say something like, "I notice you're quiet, can we talk?" Step 2, ask direct, specific questions so they have way less room to hide behind an "I'm fine." Step 3, trust your own reality. If their behavior screams that something is wrong, you aren't being oversensitive. Your perception is spot on. Step 4, set clear boundaries. Let them know that if direct communication isn't possible, you're going to have to step back. And finally, prioritize your own emotional self-care. Because let's be real, navigating this dynamic is incredibly draining.
To tie this all together, let's look at a real story about Arjun and Mira.
So Arjun and Mira were what everyone called the perfect or the mature couple. Zero drama, zero loud fights. But underneath all that, a really toxic pattern was brewing. Whenever Mira asked for something, Arjun would agree, but then he'd chronically delay it until it was convenient just for him. In response to this frustration, Mira wouldn't shout, she would just dish out one-word answers and give him completely silent evenings. They were both projecting passive aggression, Arjun through procrastination and Mira through the silent treatment. They were literally creating miles and miles of emotional distance while sitting right next to each other on the exact same couch. After 3 years of this, Mira decided to end the relationship. Arjun was completely shocked. He said, "But we never even had a fight." And Mira replied, "Yes, that's exactly why I'm ending it." This devastating realization really highlights the ultimate tragedy of passive aggression. Because neither of them felt safe enough to communicate directly based on their own childhood conditioning, they completely starved their relationship of genuine connection. It was just a slow, silent death, all without a single raised voice.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But before we go, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. Real connection only comes from a real direct language. I want you to think of a specific time you were hurt in a relationship but chose not to speak up. Maybe you used sarcasm or silence or just threw out an "I'm fine." What was the real feeling hidden underneath that response? Was it fear, powerlessness, heartbreak? I challenge you to take the very first step toward building your new emotional language right now. Drop that one specific hidden word in the comments below. Remember, acknowledging it is the very first step to changing your pattern. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I absolutely cannot wait to see you on the next explainer.